So yesterday, I came across a video which I was convinced was AI generated. But after checking it, I found out that it was an actual video by Greta Thunberg. She's now 23 and she's shot to fame for raising environmental issues and bunking school. Now, this video makes it abundantly clear why skipping lessons is a bad idea. So we hear that Greta has been protesting about this and that, and there are the critics, there are the accusations of activism for attention, or motivated by an aspiration for a future political career, which I think are all fine. But when one picks up every issue without knowledge about the ground realities or hard facts, one can look very compromised. So I'm one of the few individuals who has traveled across Balochistan. I have traveled to the Iranian borders, like the locals and with the locals, both from Quetta to Taftan and from Karachi to Sistan-Balochistan border. Why am I giving you this background? Because when I report back on anything, I have geographic, historic, and a personal experience informing my reporting or even analysis. Greta and others do not. Proof is in the video she posted. Watch it here.
Yesterday, an anti-terrorism court in Pakistan sentenced Dr. Mahrang Baloch and a few other activists to life imprisonment. Balochistan, occupied territory by Pakistan.
Regurgitating a script with an agenda, but she should have checked it for herself for accuracy. Occupied territory? So let me educate you and those who watch you, as a following in millions adds on the burden of responsibility of being accurate and always factually correct. So Pakistan has 4 provinces. The largest by size is Balochistan. However, it is sparsely populated. There are people from many ethnicities living here, predominantly the Pashtuns and Baloch. Towards the Iranian borders, there are more Baloch-dominated areas as compared to the densely populated capital city of Balochistan, Quetta, and these are not new settlers in Balochistan. Now, post-independence, Balochistan voluntarily joined the Muslim separate state created in 1947. On the 29th of June 1947, Balochistan's Shahi Jirga, a grand council of tribal leaders and the non-official members of the Quetta municipality voted unanimously to join Pakistan. Now, the Jirga did not include the princely state of Kalab, so they were consulted, and the Khan of Kalab agreed to join Pakistan. On the 27th of March 1948, after lengthy negotiations with Jinnah, the founding father and the first Governor-General of Pakistan. Now, Jinnah and the Khan had a long-standing professional association and a friendship. Jinnah had been the Khan's legal counsel, and then for the struggling young state of Pakistan, who helped with the finances, the Khan of Kalab gifted an impressive sum to Jinnah. Pakistan has not invaded Balochistan and is not an occupying force. There is a legislative assembly and a chief minister who is ethnically Baloch. There have been, of course, insurgencies in Balochistan on and off, but on a very small and rather fragmented scale. Many of those who call for a separate state do not actually live here. For those who have traveled to Balochistan, the lack of industry, jobs, as well as health facilities stands out. But for Greta, it would be of interest that the coastline and the air is squeaky clean because of that lack of infrastructure. Since the CPEC and plans to develop Khabar port, the rise in proxy wars and terrorist attacks has not only turned investors away, but also killed civilians in the thousands. The problem with sit-ins and divisive politics is that the state cannot develop the province. Compare that to Punjab and Khabar, for example, where there are motorways and industrial zones completed under the CPEC. My advice to Greta is to focus more on the new law in Sweden, which she hasn't really commented on. Perhaps it hasn't been researched also, and perhaps she doesn't have time. I've even researched Swedish language sources, and I can't find a direct quote where Greta Thunberg names this specific law, proposed last year and passed 9th of June 2026. I could only find generic comments about teenage deportations and the increasingly racist immigration policy of Sweden. Sweden's parliament voted on the 9th of June 2026 to scrap permanent residence permits as an option for refugees, people with subsidiary protection, resettled refugees, long-term residents, and people on humanitarian grounds. From July the 12th, these groups get 5-year renewable permits instead of indefinitely. Now, the change is part of efforts to adapt Sweden's regulatory framework for granting international protection and asylum procedures to the minimum guarantees that are set out in the EU law, with the aim of creating better conditions for integration and reducing asylum-related immigration. That's what the government says. But the criticisms from human rights and refugee groups, well, the critics argue that reducing access to permanent status creates long-term uncertainty, weakens integration, and leaves people in prolonged limbo, even after being recognized as needing protection. And the UNHCR has flagged concerns about earlier versions of this proposal. Legal scholars have questioned whether the real aim is less about pushing people towards citizenship and integration and more about destabilizing the legal status of refugees and others in need of protection, since citizenship requirements are simultaneously being tightened, including financial self-sufficiency and language rules. Now, many Afghans and Somalis with permanent residence can't even meet the verified identity requirements for citizenship, whereas in Pakistan has absorbed 3 million Afghan refugees following the Soviet Union war. So perhaps Greta needs to focus more on voicing her concerns about human rights and freedoms and protecting the most vulnerable of communities back home in Sweden. And of course, she's always welcome to come to Pakistan. And I'll personally take her to Balochistan for her to see.